Hi there, thanks for checking this video. I'm Jackson Felden. Today I have a very important subject to present. I want to show how you can improve the exposure score and the device security score. On my own lab, I've been working for the last 4 days and I managed to improve my exposure score from 44. I brought it down to 0, managed to get a perfect score. On the device security score, I started the configuration with 46% and I managed to bring to 68%. Thanks to a couple of things I did. First was applying the ASR rules, the attack surface reduction, and then I had to update all the operating system, I had to update some software as well, and then at the end I did some other improvements when I followed basically the Microsoft recommendations for security as well. Anyway, if you want to see all the steps, stay tuned and I will show how you can improve the security score on your organization as well. Okay, the place to start this journey is on the Microsoft 365 Defender. Just you need to go to security.microsoft.com and then you will land into the Microsoft 365 Defender. And then here on the left, make sure you expand the vulnerability management and then finally dashboards. Okay, as you can see here on my lab environment, my exposure score is not that great, it's 44 at the moment. And low should be, between 0 to 29. It means I'm already reached the median, range. And if I try to understand why my score is not that great, if I point out here, I should do some improvements. Yeah, there are some devices running with kind of old Google Chrome software. There are some other exposure as well in regards to the, I think I saw here before, Firefox and some other kind of bits and pieces. I will show how you fix that. Okay, that's the first thing. And of course, when it comes to the exposure score, less is better. Okay, if I go down, the next score, again not that great, is the score for the device. At the moment is 46, and here is exactly the opposite. More is better. Okay, I should be looking here to have, let's say, 75, 80, 85, more is better. As you can see, not that great when it comes to the applications itself. I'm just getting 5 points out of 37. This is mainly because I have some old software running on my devices. And the second one, when it comes to the operating system, again, not that great in my case, for 2 reasons. First, some of the devices are missing the last patch Tuesday, or any kind of operating system patch. And the second part is when the ASR, kicks in, is I haven't really enabled any ASR rules, and then this is why there is a huge, let's say, room here in order to improve and to bring this score to a better position. Okay, usually the question is, okay, how can we drive the exposure score down, and how can we drive the secure, let's say, the score for devices up? Okay, the best way to go is here on the left, just click on recommendations. And then, of course, there are loads of recommendations here. Let me to point you into the right direction. Let me filter by 2, by 2 options in here. Okay, the first one is, the best thing to do is click on filter. If I don't filter anything, I will get a quite, big list. Of course, I really should go over all of them. But to keep the story short, let me do 2 things. First, let me click on filter. If I click on filter, now, first of all, I want to isolate how I can improve the scores. First, by updating or upgrading software. And then the second one is doing configuration, and then is when the ASR comes. Okay, first let me focus my mind here in terms of make my devices better by updating or upgrading system. Okay, if I click on apply, now I should get a list. Okay, and of course, this is not a production environment. I have, I think, 12 devices at this stage, some servers 2012, 2016, 2019, and Windows 10 as well. Anyway, as you can see in here, yeah, there are some missing Windows 10 updates, missing 2016 updates. To be honest, I kind of, stopped getting the updates just to make sure the score was not great and for me to show how to fix. Yeah, and then some third-party application as well. In here, as you can see, some devices running most likely an old Firefox application or software, another one running a Foxit PDF reader, and so on. Here, there is a small, let's say, info in regards to the weakness. And then very important, okay, very important is the information here in this corner, okay, the impact. It means if eventually I update all the Windows 10 OS, okay, I can get rid, let's say the impact that is 16, okay, will disappear. If I update Server 2016, the impact is 16 as well. If I basically fix the Google Chrome issue, I can get, 11 and so on. And then especially when dealing to kind of a real environment in here, I can see how many of my devices actually need to be remediated. Yeah, sorry, I just clicked by accident, okay, in there. Basically, if I go back in here, I have in total 3 Windows 10, and bad news, all of them are looking to get a new update and so on. To get a quick report, again, if I would be working at enterprise, I could be seeing here, let's say thousands of devices, maybe 20,000 devices, and 500 are missing some updates. And then the golden question is, who are they? In this case, very simple to answer that. I just need to click in there. And then from here, exposed devices. If I click in there, I can now see, in my case, these are exactly the 3 devices with missing updates. Very important as well, if you're wondering, could say, oh, maybe those devices, they are gone, they don't belong to the network, anymore. But for me, yeah, today is actually the 14th. These devices, they were last seen actually today, a few minutes ago. It means they are really active devices. If I would have a big list, the best thing to do is always quickly click on export. And then from there now I can, just open that file and get exactly the list of devices where I need to, maybe it could be another team managing the operating system, updates. And then the good news now is, yeah, I just need to provide this list, and whatever the guys who are in charge using Intune or using MCM, okay, talk to them, provide this list for them to go after and make sure the OS update, OS patches, are all done. And the same story, if I'm looking here now to understand, yeah, there are, let's say, out of 8, okay, some updates in regards to Google Chrome, okay, who are those 2 devices, same story. If I click in there, I can click in here, and then easily enough I can see, yeah, actually a Server 2016, there is a missing Google Chrome update and Windows 10 as well. Anyway, that's part 1. Okay, I really want to make the let's say the security score and the exposure score, let's say, better, and then I need to chase and make sure I update whatever is possible. The second part of the configuration is the following. Let me untick now those things, and okay, the next one is in regards to missing configuration. Okay, there are some best practices when it comes to the device security. We should kind of stick with Microsoft, and by doing that we can, as initially I said, we can take the whole device management, the security level, to a better level. Okay, now let's forget software update and patches and so on, and let's focus 100% on, let's say, better configuration we can deploy on those devices to bring the security to a better place. If I click on apply, and pretty much all the top let's say actions here on the list, they are related to the ASR, attack surface reduction. Okay, yeah, let me just go through a couple of them. Yeah, the first one is to block all Office application from creating child processes. Okay, yeah, that's not implemented on my network. Again, I can quickly look, yeah, really bad news, out of 8 devices, 8 are missing that configuration. If I keep going, let me just get some randoms here. Block untrusted and unassigned processes from running from USB. Again, I haven't implemented that configuration. This is why the system is kind of pointing out. Same story, yeah, block Adobe Reader from creating child processes, and I'm not going to waste your time reading all of them. The good thing in here again, if I just go down to the right, and every time when you see red, that's not really good news. It means all of those threats are in here because I'm allowing Word, Excel access in creating sub processes. Okay, if I go down in here, same story, full of things I'm exposed, at the moment on my lab environment. Okay, anyway, just to keep in mind, that's the place to go. First of all, if you go to the dashboard, is the quick way to see how your company is doing when it comes to the exposure score and the device score as well. And then in order for us to bring the exposure, let's say, score down and bring the security score when it comes to device up, okay, the best thing to do is to go to the recommendation to understand where you are, and then eventually implement the action plan. Okay, the action plan now I want to show is I want to tackle first the Windows 10, make sure all of those configuration when it comes to the remediating the exposure, I want to deploy via Intune. Another thing you can do as well, if you go over the remediation, okay, click in here, and then basically from here, especially in a kind of enterprise environment, is the place where you can start adding the activities to remediate and get a big list to see who is already working on those activities. Okay, for the moment, I haven't logged any activity yet. Anyway, let me jump to Intune and let me show how you can basically deploy ASR rules using Intune. Okay, the place to go if you are kind of new on Intune, okay, make sure you go on endpoint.microsoft.com, that's the place, and then go over the endpoint security, click in there, and then the next step to go is to you could create a single profile or multiple profiles. I will give you the best practice in a few seconds. Okay, here is the place, attack surface reduction, let me click in there. And at the moment, as you can see, and based on my score that is not great, I haven't done any policy yet. And yeah, let's start from the scratch. Create a new policy. Click in there. Now I need to select in here what is the platform. Okay, I'm looking for Windows 10 and later. Okay, later means Windows 11 in these days as well. Click in there. And there are a bunch of profiles I can create. But right now, let me tackle the attack surface reduction. Click in there, click on create. If you have been working with Intune, now the upcoming, let's say, screens are pretty much what you have done already using those configuration profile. Okay, let's say my company name is Contoso. Let me say Contoso ASR Policy. Let's keep simple for the moment. Okay, click on next. And here is the important, bit now. As you can see, if you have a good memory, now you will recall some of the names in here. For example, block Adobe Reader from creating child processes. Yeah, I read that a few seconds ago, to you. Another one, yeah, the Office 365, avoid Office in creating child process. They are here as well. Okay, when I click in here, I could say off. What I'm really looking here is pretty much, block, audit, or warn. Okay, the three options are in here. Let me quickly explain the difference. First of all, if I go straight away and set block, probably I don't need to explain. It means every time when Adobe Reader, in this case, tries to create a new child process, okay, it will be blocked straight away, and end of the story. That will, prevent some bad things to happen. The problem is, and the big question is, especially for, enterprise, but actually, any company out there, is how much damage that can, I say damage, how much trouble that can cause for the end users, because, those settings, they were never enabled. To play safe, one of the options is basically to stick in set as audit. As the name suggests, it means everything will keep running as normal, but every time Adobe Reader is creating a new child process, basically that goes into a log, and then we can explore the log, to see what are the devices, what are the users, when basically those child processes are creating, and so on. And then after doing a kind of proper investigation, you could say, actually, we don't need those processes, and now let's stick with block, because we want to kind of keep the devices safer. Okay, another kind of new option is warn. The option here is the following, as the name suggests. Every time when the Adobe Reader creates a new process, it asks for the user, for the kind of the user permission, and then the user can kind of decide to allow or deny. After that action, for the next 24 hours, the action will be the same. It means if the user basically allows the process to, to keep going, the next 24 hours it will allow, and then after 24 hours, the user needs to kind of provide the input as well. Okay, this is a kind of new Microsoft introduced, a while ago. Before we used to use audit, now we have another option. Okay, again, if your environment is kind of complex enough, and you don't want to kind of initially to train the user to explain what are all those options about, I would advise go to audit. If you have nothing, go to audit, get a better understanding, where you are at the moment, and then from there you can eventually go to a second place as warn or block. Okay. In my case, of course, it's just a lab environment, and I'm really looking to improve the security. Let's pretend I did the auditing. I already kind of, isolated some devices. I already managed to understand how all those, let's say, elements are working. And then this is why, and to buy a bit of time as well, I decided to straight away, to block all those options. Okay, let me go here, and of course, you as an engineer doing that setup, you really need to understand, what you are doing to avoid to kind of mess up with some kind of in-house application that is not causing any problem, but, needs, for example, JavaScript or VB script and so on. Okay, but for now, let me, go in implementing the safest mode that's possible. And what I want to do is kind of, block everything possible. Okay. Yeah, let me just keep going in here, block application, yeah, again, block in here, block the other office, username protection. Yeah, let me stick, let's say, and set a very high level when it comes to the configuration. Of course, that's not suitable, for some of the organizations. If you are using, or if you are heavily using PowerShell to kind of run some scripts and WMI and so on. For example, this one here, block processes creation from PS exec in WMI. I know some of the organizations out there, they rely on those two functions, and then the best way to do is, again, do an audit, but eventually, we could set as not configured because we need those processes running. Okay, for me, let me stick and set as a block. Okay, that's fine. And then eventually in here, I could, enable controlled folder. I did a video recording explaining how to implement the controlled folder access. That's very important and very useful on, how could I say, on the fight against ransomware. I will add the link on the video description below, and then I would advise you to have a look on that video as well. Okay, anyway, I think it looks good at the moment. Okay, I don't want to do any kind of exclusion for the moment, and everything is blocked. Okay, that's fine. Now next step is next, and then basically now here is a place, again, for the guys already familiar with Intune, here's a place where we can finally assign this policy for all users, all devices, or I could go and specify only a single or a couple of groups. Okay, initially, maybe is a test environment. I could specify only for some kind of guys from the IT or guys from, you know, whatever the testing environment I have, okay? Again, in my case, because it's a kind of just a lab environment, let's stick with the plan, and I want to apply. I really want to make sure all my devices will get this policy and to kind of improve the security. Okay, that's fine. Next. Now, yeah, I could assign some tags and stuff, but let's keep simple. Next, and finally, yeah, I'm happy with everything. And finally, next. And that's it. Okay, before I start showing all the results, okay, and yeah, just one more time, let me double check. Yeah, everything looks amazing, I would say, and click on create. Okay, now before I move on and start talking about my devices, because now I need to force, I would say that force, you know, I could kind of force a synchronization just to buy a bit of time, but let me give you another tip in here. Okay. What would be the best practice, especially, you know, if you want to a more flexible environment when you need to deal with exceptions, okay? At the moment, as you could see, I have a single ASR and I have applied for every single device on my organization. The problem you can face with that is the following. Let me go now into the configuration again. Okay, go there. And then from here, yeah, I could always review the configuration, but let me click on edit, click in there, and then eventually it's coming. Okay, just want to show how the exception can be a little bit tricky when you have a single policy. Okay, if I go down here to the list, and now I need to make, for example, an exception for, you know, when it comes to the attack surface reduction, I could click in here, and then eventually I could add, you know, a folder or maybe a process where I want to exclude from all these rules here I created. The problem I have now at the moment is the following. Whatever the process or whatever the folder or the application I add in here is going to be excluded for every single rule I have created here in a block mode. Again, you know, that could be fine, but it could be too much. Okay, and then the advice I can give you, kind of, you know, for everybody watching this video to do a proper work, is doing the following. Instead to create a full, let me just cancel here for the moment. Instead to create a single policy that's going to apply every single of those ASR rules, the best way I could do is the following. Create basically a unique policy for every single of those rules. Okay, I'm not going to create all of them, but let me give an example. Okay, and then the good news is later on, if things are a little bit tricky on your environment and you need to make an exclusion, a folder only for the PS exec and the WMI, yeah, you have the policy. If you need to do another exclusion only for Acrobat Reader when creating processes, yeah, you have the flexibility. Maybe you need to exclude, you know, a couple of devices from creating the child processes from Office 365 and so on. The good news is if you have a policy created for every single rule, and then of course it's a bit of more work to be done, but the way to go is, you know, basically I could just borrow the name from here. Okay, copy from here. Now let me go back to there and create a new policy. I want to stick with Windows 10 and later. Click in here. I want to stick with the ASR. Click in there. And now what I need to do is maybe just to keep the story short, ASR, and then the rule I'm looking to create. Okay, in this case, block execution from, you know, from those scripts. Okay, that's fine. You know, if you think the name is too, you know, too long, you can always, you know, change the name. That's fine. That's not the most important. Click on next. And now just to kind of, you know, click all the dots together is in here. All of those rules that now don't match with the name I'm about to create, just leave not configured because you don't want to kind of, you know, mix the policies together. And then what I want to do is, because I'm creating the policy specifically for this rule here, okay, this rule I want to block. Everything else I'm leaving as not configured. okay? And then the beauty of that is, of course, I will end up having, last time when I counted, 16 different rules. But when you need to do an exception, only to block execution from, those particular script, and then you come only on this rule and do the exception, okay? That's fine. I'm not going to touch anything because my focus is only on this script in here. Okay, next. And then eventually, yeah, again, here's the place where I could add, again, a single department, a single, let's say, group or everybody. In this case, because it's only a testing, I'm not going to apply anyone to anyone. I want to stick with my previous configuration. Click on next, and then eventually next, and, of course, finish. And the kind of the bad news for you, you need to do that 16 times, okay? One policy for each rule. Initially, it's a bit of work, but as I told you before, in a kind of complex environment, in a long run, it will give you much more flexibility, because right now, if I click on that rule and I make an exception, it's only for that script execution, not for other kind of Adobe processes or Office processes and so on, okay? Anyway, that's pretty much the configuration done. Okay, 4 days have passed since I started recording this video, and now let me show the results. If I go back to my security.microsoft.com, and then over vulnerability management, and then finally dashboard. If I click in here, let's see the new score I've got after doing a bit of work on the last 4 days. When it comes to the organization exposure, as you can see, I managed to bring the score to 0. In a few minutes, I will show all the steps I've done, but before it was 44, if I have a good memory, and now basically I managed to achieve a perfect score that is 0. If I go down and check my device score, or the score for devices, before was 49, and I managed to bring up to 68. I did, after implementing the ASR rules, the security controls in here, I got a big improvement in here. And then I did some good improvements as well over the application. And then I'm just getting almost a perfect score, 36 out of 37. Anyway, that's kind of the big news for the day. Now, of course, I still need to show what I've done in order to improve the exposure score and the score for devices. Anyway, as I already showed before, if I go back to my Endpoint Manager over the Endpoint Security, and then if I click on the ASR rule, I created the rules. Now I just want to show the rules have been applied. If I go over the attack surface reduction, click in there, and then the rule I assigned to 3 of my Windows 10 devices are here, the Contoso ASR. If I click in there, I just want to one more time show you the rules have been applied. If I click on View Reports, click in there, then I should be able to see my 3 devices. Of course, here it shows double as the device and user as well. But if I focus in here, my Windows 10 22, Windows 10 23, and Windows 10 21. These are basically my 3 devices. Yeah, because the rules were applied successfully, this is why, the score went better. Now let me show you how I can apply the ASR rules on the servers. Because I don't have the servers registered on my Intune, I can't manage them from here. And then this is why I had to do manually. Basically what I did is I went to the Microsoft website, and then I got the IDs. Each of these IDs in here, they represent one of those ASR rules. I can't really remember the order here, but for example, the first one could be to avoid Office in creating child processes. The second one could be the Acrobat Reader, to avoid, the Acrobat Reader in creating child process, and so on. Basically, please check the video description below in order to find exactly the reference for each of these rules. And then having those rules, I can apply now using the ADMP preference, and then just, I need to use the attack surface reduction and so on. Of course, if your servers have been managed by Grow Policy, you can push those rules via Grow Policy as well. In my case, just to kind of buy a bit of time, what I did is I just copy and paste all of those commands in all of my servers. As you can see, I have a couple of servers, 2016, 2012, and 2019. And then what I did is, if I come here now, just copy and paste, and now the rules now have been applied. And then this is what I did exactly to apply the ASR rules on every single server. And then the good news, as I was showing already, is if I go back to here, I managed to bring the score from the security controls that was around, 100, I think, or 80, now is basically 365. There are some other configuration I can do, but was a kind of, big win. Okay, another thing I did in order to bring especially the exposure score to 0, first I had to apply all the updates for the operating system. I have to apply all the updates as well for the software. But and then for my, when I apply the updates for software, the application score was still low, not that great. And then what I had to do was the following. In order to get a almost perfect score for application, what I did was the following. I had to go over the recommendations, click in there, and then from here, it's better to kind of, stay focused, to click on filter, and then from here we can kind of, filter. Then what I did before was to, click on filter. And then here are a couple of categories you can focus your next work. And then what I did was over the application, just click on application and then click on apply. And then first time when I did that, I had a list of, I have a slide coming up in a few seconds of 6 or 7 different configuration that was not done on my environment. And then I just left one in here to show, there are 2 devices where I haven't applied the configuration yet. If I click in there, it's really cool. Here the system explains, why, the description, the potential risk. And then very important, if you click over the recommendation, here are all the steps you need to configure. If you want to implement via MEM, basically just follow the steps. Or, what I did just to, especially from the servers, because they are not managed by any configuration, what I did was just by creating a registry key, I managed to apply all of those 6 or 7 different configuration. I tackled them via, just following the steps from here. And then this is why a part of the block, the ActiveX, a part of that I managed to pretty much get a perfect score, okay, from there as well. The same story I did for the operating system. Okay, if I go back to the recommendations, let me just go back to here. This is, what kept me busy for the last 4 days. If I go back to recommendations and then click on filters, filter, and then let me show now, let's say I want to improve the score when it comes to the operating system. When I click on apply, as far as I can remember, there is one missing configuration in here. Actually, not a configuration, that's an interesting one. A change service executable path to, common protected location. If I click in there, and then if I click on remediation, there was a mistake when I install Squid on my system. I will show you. Basically, when I did installation, I kept the default folder, and the default location is C Squid. And following the Microsoft best practice, I should run any of the, any service from one of those protected folders, like Windows, program files, and so on. And just to prove to you what I'm explaining, if I click on the exposed devices, click in there, there is a bad configuration coming from my server 2012-02. Now let me show what is causing this problem and kind of, avoiding me to have a better score for the operating system. If I go back to my server, actually this is the guy, this is the server. If I, just to prove to you, host name, Yeah, this is the server 2012-02. And then what I did is when I install Squid on this server, I kind of totally forgot that option, and I install Squid on the kind of, C root. Instead, C program files, C Windows, and so on. Now, the problem I have is, unless I uninstall, install again, I need to cope with that kind of, vulnerability. But anyway, that's pretty much, the journey I want to take you in order how you can really improve the score. Basically, first, I have applied every single patch for the operating system, and then I have applied every single update for all the softwares, I have. After that, I used the recommendation, and then I went over the filters, and then eventually I did a good work into the operating system, and then I moved into the application. And of course, there are so many other configurations I could improve. If I click on the accounts and click on apply, I didn't want to apply every single, configuration just to show to you. Now, in order for me to get a better score when it comes to the device security score, because under the account, my score is not great at the moment, but by the time I click one by one, as you can see in here, 7 devices, I should improve that configuration, 5 devices, 8 devices. If I eventually follow the steps in here, get a understanding how why that configuration is important, click on remediation, and then follow the steps to fix. Again, I can improve, or I will improve is the right way to say, the exposure score. I'm happy, is 0. It can't get any better than that. But eventually, as I was talking, account is 35 out of 71. There's a good work to be done. But if I follow those steps, definitely I will bring the accounts to a much better level that is, at the moment. Okay, before I finish this video, just to make sure you guys kind of, are with me and can understand all the work I did, I put together a bit of some of the slides to explain, what I did. Okay, if I start back on 14th at 3:30 in the afternoon, before applying the ASR rules and before applying any OS update, I had a not great score, 44 for the exposure score, and 46 for the device score, really not great. Okay, that's fine. Next step, basically, after applying the ASR and installing all the missing patch, I had a really good improvement. From 44, the score went to 17. That's kind of, acceptable because it's low. And I got here from 49, if I have good, 46 to 64 on the security score. Okay, just by applying the ASR and the OS updates. Okay, and then I kept working. When I went to the filter and filter by application, the system, Microsoft cached, I was running some old Firefox, installation. My Foxit was not the latest version. And then I had some one machine here with an old Google Chrome. In, Office, a single machine with an Office, let's say, update missing. Okay, what I did is, install Firefox, a better update on all devices. I updated the Foxit, and I updated all the Microsoft Office as well. Okay, by doing that, good news again. From 15th of April, let's say 9:30, my score was dropped from 17 to 9. By doing the software update, I didn't get any better into the device score. Okay, that's fair enough. And then I kept working. After, basically, there was 1 or 2 more missing software update. After doing that, and then finally on the 17th at 3 p.m., I managed to get a perfect score for the exposure. Okay, and then in here, I got basically pretty much, 0. And then I was not happy, from 64, especially, I was looking, okay, hold on. All the application are running with the latest version. There is no missing patch. There is no missing updates. Why the application score is not getting better? Anyway, and then when I filter by application, here were all the recommendations for me to be done. You know, enable hide application, enable block third-party ActiveX, and so on. What I did then was basically to go one by one, follow all the registry key. As I told you before, I could do that via via Grow Policy as well. But anyway, and then after applying all of those remediation, and then basically on the 17th, 6 p.m., my first score was still 0. You know, that's great. And then from here, I managed to jump again from 64, okay, to 68. And then if I look in here from the application again, you know, almost the perfect score. You know, looking here, application is looking really good. The security is looking, you know, really good. By the time I fix that problem with the Squid installation, I should get a better score on the OS, and then I should pretty much, you know, just keep the work, find the relevant configuration to be applied on the network, the relevant configuration to be applied over the accounts, and then again I could keep driving this score, you know, going up to 70, you know, 80, 85, and you know, as I told you at the beginning, let's say when it comes to the first score, and here less is better, okay, 0 in my case is perfect, and then looking the device score, more is better, you know, whatever you can get closer from 100, it will be really great. Anyway, I think that's pretty much the work, you know, I've been doing for the last 4 days, and hopefully that gives you, you know, a better understanding how first these two scores position, you know, your organization, where you are in terms of security, and then thanks to the Microsoft recommendation, when you know you look in here and when you follow basically the recommendation. If you haven't done, you know, yourself, now is the proof, you know, if you stick with the plan, do the recommendation, you can really bring the scores to a much better position. And pretty much the last tip I want to give you, I think I kind of gave you a bit of information 4 days ago, 4 days ago when I was recording, you know, the first video. When I did my configuration, I decided to create a single ASR policy, and then I have assigned that policy to my 3 Windows 10, and I have enabled all of those 16 rules in the same policy. You know, initially is easier, is faster, because a single policy, just go there, you know, set as a block or set as a audit, as I told you at the beginning, assign these ASR rules to all the devices, and then job done. The problem is, by the time you need to exclude a folder, you need to exclude a process, basically there is a single exclusion that will be applied for all of those 16 rules. And then eventually you only want to exclude a particular folder from the PS exec, you know, the scripts you are running on PowerShell. Now the problem is, if you exclude, you will exclude from everything. This is why, let's say the tip I gave you quickly, now I want to reinforce, is instead to have a single policy on Intune, what you really should do is to create 16 different policies, okay? Each policy for individual of those ASR rule. A single policy for the PS exec, and a single policy to block Office in creating child processes. Another policy to create, to avoid Acrobat Reader in creating child processes, and so on. And then by the time you need to exclude a folder or a process or, you know, something from one of those rules, and then you have much more flexibility in order to implement that configuration, okay? That's very important for you to take in consideration and do a proper design before going ahead and implementing ASR. I hope now you have a better understanding how the exposure score and the device security score present the company security posture, and then how you can use the recommendations in order to improve the security. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like, subscribe my channel, and I hope to see you again. Thanks for watching.